Were you aware when the Dr. Lumpkin died?
No, I'm just trying to remember what transpired there, whether he went down to Thailand before us or whether he stayed behind.
I understood he died up in Burma.
Well, in that case he would have been there after we left. Because I didn't find out about him dying until after the war. You know, you make inquiries and find out these things.
What about a British officer who was an interpreter by the name of Captain Bill Drower? Does that name ring a bell?
No.
What about a Jap guard who was nicknamed Dillinger, who killed an Australian sergeant? Were you in that area when that occurred?
No, he was in a different camp to us, but he was quite notorious. This Dillinger bloke.
And what about a Japanese, one of the camp commanders by the name of Noguchi, something like that?
Yes, yeah, Noguchi. Yeah.
Did you know much about him, about his behaviour?
No. The bloke who was in charge of our camp, he was a captain, but he was never very evident. He didn't come out very much, and you only saw him when he was off down to Melbourne or somewhere. He came out in all his finery and jumped in a truck and was taken down there. You never saw him very much.
Yes.
It was fairly benign as far as that sort of thing was concerned.
Now, I must say I did sidetrack you there when I took you back into Burma, but now if we go back to Saigon, and how did you get from Saigon to Japan?
Well, I didn't. The plan was that we were to get on a ship at Saigon and go straight up to Japan. But the Yanks by this time had closed the port. They bombed everything that moved outside, plus the obviously submarines, etc. And they had virtually closed the port. So there was nothing going out. We were working down on the wharf most of the time, and there were only very, very small ships that were moving, but there were nothing like bigger ships such as 4,000 and 5,000 tonners. They weren't in evidence at all. They were only just small ships, a few hundred tons, and they was moving some of them in and out, but that was about all.
So we're in 1944. You've come down from Burma. You're out at Saigon. Where were you between then, that time, and August 1945?
Well, we went back down to Singapore. Went back up the river up to Phnom Penh, and went from Phnom Penh by train back down to. Went to Bangkok and then down to Singapore. But before we left Saigon, or before we left Phnom Penh, we had got a very good reception. We were in a camp for 1 day, 2 days, and we had a lot of food thrown over the fence and this sort of thing. And the Japs weren't in very good standing with the community. So when we went to march from the camp down to the railway station, the Japs had a habit of saying, all men do this or all men do that, and the order was, all men sing. And of course you've got some couple of thousand blokes, and they're all strung out in a great big long lines. And somebody up the front of the line decided to whistle a Marseillaise, and that just about sent the population into hysterics. And not only hysterics, but they got quite nationalistic and what have you, and disturbed everything. It was quite amazing. And of course then the Japs realised that something was going on with the whistling. So of course they went up and down the line trying to shut people down. And of course as far as that sort of thing is concerned, it just wasn't on. So it was a very relieved Jap that our commander that got us onto this train out of Phnom Penh, but it was just by the by. We got down to Singapore, and we went into the River Valley Road camp, and from the River Valley Road camp we went out to this Jeep Island or Puladama and worked out there, and that was where I ran into my problems out on the island, reinfected with malaria, and picked up pellagra and beriberi and a dose of dysentery and goodness knows what, all came at once. And Riley Richards was the doctor at the time, and he couldn't do a hell of a lot for me, but I survived the camp and went back into River Valley Road, and of course at this time they were also loading everybody onto ships and getting them out of there. But of course, having infectious diseases, they said no. So I had to stay behind and just watch all your mates go, and it's pretty hard.
Sure.
So from there I went out to Changi camp, out to the jail.
When you're sorry,
but the remainder of that group, they got onto these ships that were going up to Japan, and that was the one that, well, one of the ones that got sunk, of course, and these blokes were there for 5 days on these rafts, etc., before they got picked up by the Yanks.
So that would be the vessels that Arthur was on, Arthur Bancroft?
Right, yeah.
Did you know Phil Bilby?
Phil Bilby? Well, I know the name, but...
were you ever aware of anyone on the Burma end of the line playing a clarinet?
No, this clarinet business, the only